Did somebody say 2 uploads in 2 weeks? I know. Thank you. But unfortunately, this is quite a serious video. There are a lot of conspiracy theories in professional wrestling, and I believe all of them. So I'm going to run through all the ones I believe, and all I ask is that you respect my opinion, and then when you let me know which ones you disagree with in the comments, I won't respect yours. There are at least 5 wrestlers who are active today just called Akira. Abyss was the original Kane. The Kane that unmasked and stayed in WWE for a couple of decades after that, that was a new Kane, and the one that would, in the 90s with the mask, that ended up becoming Abyss in TNA. You may have heard that AJ Styles' team was actually meant for James Storm or the Briscoes, Southern Boy, Farmer Strength. It was actually meant for Drew Gulak. All wrestlers sing their own music. The Authors of Pain are brothers. I know one of them is a 27-year-old Albanian, and the other one is from Canada, and they've got completely different names and completely different backgrounds, but I firmly believe that they're brothers, if not the same person altogether. Buck Dixon is the most powerful man in professional wrestling. I don't believe for 1 second that this man can take this unusually nondescript image, this picture for FCW, beat Roman Reigns, team up with Eric Rowan, and then just leave. I'm convinced there is a whole underworld to professional wrestling, and Buck Dixon is at the head of it. Champions wear their titles everywhere. CM Punk is an MMA beast, right? He only lost to Mickey Gall and Mike Jackson. Mickey Gall is the same man who submitted Sage Northcutt, right? Absolute monster. Mike Jackson headbutted Dean Barry, a top Irish prospect, so hard in the eye that he had to give up, and Mike Jackson got the win. It just so happened that CM Punk fought the 2 best MMA fighters, and that's why he looked bad in comparison. Kurt Hennig was Kurt Henning, but somebody spelt his name wrong, and he was too polite to correct them, and that's why it's Hennig. Dax Harwood is Trevor Murdoch's son. Death matches are fake. Barbed wire is kind of like Play-Doh. Fire is kind of like Play-Doh, and the broken glass is kind of like Play-Doh. Like, it's just not real. I don't believe death matches are legit. Drew McIntyre is American. I will absolutely die on that hill. That man has never set foot in Scotland outside of his time with WWE doing tours and stuff. If he ever actually set foot in Scotland, it would go something like this.
If there's one thing the people of Glasgow love, it's their soccer. There's 2 main teams. There's the Glasgow Celtics and the Glasgow Rangers. Here's a couple of lads just now playing a bit of soccer. And hey lads, up the RAW. What? The RAW is like short for Rangers, so like up the RAW means like come on the Rangers.
Tupac doesn't fear John Cena the wrestler, but he does fear John Cena the rapper. Eric Redbeard hides full tubes of Pringles in his beard for when he's hungry and he wants to eat later, 100%. Goldberg's streak wasn't inflated or exaggerated, he just beat up a lot of people in his spare time, kind of casually. Hardcore Holly never broke his neck. He landed like that basically so that people would have a reason to root for him against Brock Lesnar later on. Shawn Michaels, right? People ripped into this fella for overselling against Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam 2005, right? But little do they know, he was legitimately hurt, right? Every time he took a punch or anything like that off Hogan, the reason he responded like that is because he was so sore that his body just did that. Hulk Hogan was sent to sabotage TNA in January 2010. Jim Cornette doesn't care about wrestling that much. Don't get me wrong, like he obviously cares about wrestling and loves it, but when he sees something he thinks is a bit shit, he doesn't really care that much, but because his audience are there for him to get angry and shout, he kind of has to appease them, so he wears himself out by sort of faking his outrage to the extent that it is, and yeah. Vince McMahon supposedly hates people who like sneeze and cough and stuff, so there is no doubt in my mind that he has absolutely fired staff members for getting sick after Joey Mercury busted his nose at Armageddon 2006. Some people say the streak was meant to last forever and that Brock Lesnar went into business for himself. Some people say that CM Punk was meant to end the streak and things changed, whatever. I believe that King Kong Bundy was meant to end the streak at 3-1 because it's a nice, respectable record. I think we'd have all sort of talked about it for years on end afterwards. But yeah, plans got changed and then things kind of got out of hand after that. There was a rumor on my road when I was like 9 or 10 that WWE was fake, but TNA was real. Obviously, it wasn't true because, you know, wrestling was predetermined, it's scripted, whatever. Yeah, that goes for all wrestling, except Lucha Underground was real. MLW is a money laundering scheme. I don't know why I really feel this way. Like, it's not like they've got nothing of value. They have some really, really talented wrestlers and stuff, but there's just something so weird about the company. Like, I can't really quite put my finger on it. Mr. Kennedy never won Money in the Bank. Nick Aldis is the NWA champion. Despite what was requested in his song, nobody actually said it to Alex Riley's face. Nikos Rikos' gear was designed by somebody who absolutely, for whatever reason, just hates Greek people and doesn't want to see a single Greek person succeed in professional wrestling for any reason whatsoever. Parts Unknown is a real place, and it's probably somewhere near Fermanagh. Paul Bearer was a pun. Paul Bearer, Undertaker. Paul London died when he got eliminated from the 2005 Royal Rumble, and a stunt double has been used ever since. I'm from Germany and was 6 years old during the summer of 92. Shortly after the reunification with East Germany, during the build to SummerSlam 92 at Wembley Stadium in London, they constantly used footage of the Berlin Wall being taken down in the promo video. So naturally, I thought that people tore down the wall because they desperately wanted to go to SummerSlam and see Macho vs. Warrior and Hitman vs. Bulldog. That's actually true. Rey Mysterio had to get his head reconstructed after it was squished by the Great Khali. Rhea Ripley is not 5'7". As somebody who's 5'7", a tall 5'7", a jacked 5'7", Rhea Ripley's not 5'7". That's a typo. She's probably about 7'5". Rob Van Dam wants to wrestle at WrestleMania again 20 more times and lose 20 more times so that his record becomes 4-20. Ryback wasn't real. Never happened. Sean O'Hare was Irish, right? When I was like 8 and I was playing SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, I noticed that, you know, the American Shawn Michaels spells Sean proper weird, whereas this fella spelled his name Sean, like, properly. And then O'Hare, it was such an Irish name. I was like, this fella's probably from fucking Rathfarnham or somewhere like that. So, yeah, I still agree with that. Sheamus puts on a fake Irish accent despite the fact that he is genuinely Irish and already has an Irish accent to begin with. Stephanie McMahon did invent women back in the mid-2010s, which is pretty cool because before that you used to just have to use stunt doubles and things like that. Steve Austin downplayed Melina versus Alicia Fox on Tough Enough because he knows that the two of them put on a better match than anything he has ever put on in the history of his career. The reason Brawl for All 2 has never taken place and will never take place in the foreseeable future in WWE is not because it's PG, not for insurance reasons, and not for sponsorships or anything like that, but because Tamina would clearly win it and they've no intentions of pushing her. Taz could have easily out-wrestled Kurt Angle. I know Kurt Angle has all the credentials and the Olympic gold medals, but Taz was really cool, and I think that's something that people don't really take into account. Tessa Blanchard never wanted to wrestle. She was born into it through her dad, and now she's trying to get herself blacklisted from as many places as possible so that she can say, man, I'd love to wrestle, but unfortunately, I can't, instead of just walking out on her own terms. The Fiend actually did genuinely have superpowers, but everyone backstage thought it was cheesy, so they had them do the special effects instead. The McMahons aren't real. Well, they are real, but they have actors playing them anytime we see them on screen. Many people think the Montreal Screwjob was a work. Many people think that it was real. I am in the camp that the Montreal Screwjob was an accident. Vince McMahon ran out to the ring and he saw somebody that he, you know, a mate of his or someone that he knew, and he was pointing over at them like, oh, you, like into the crowd, and then the ring bell person was like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking ring the bell now because that's presumably what he wants me to do. It was such an embarrassing fuck up on everybody's part that they just sort of played along and acted as if they meant it. The original plan for the NWO was that everybody, like every single wrestler, did join it, and that the lesson would be that, hey, we can all be friends, we don't need to fight, and then WCW would have become something else, but then plans changed along the way. Tribute to the Troops was initially Tribute to Troops, the fella from Arsenal Fan TV. But then backstage, a Tottenham fan was hired and things got a bit messy, so they just dedicated it to the US Army instead. Tyson Tomko and Tomko were the same person. Vince McMahon doesn't know that NXT UK exists. It was set up by Triple H and William Regal and all them, and now that Triple H is at home and all them are fired now pretty much, so there's nobody there to explain to Vince McMahon that what NXT UK is. Like if Jim Smallman walked into Vince's office tomorrow, he'd have no idea who he is. So that's why it's going to probably live forever. WCW did that show in the Mall of America because the Square and Tala was booked that day. The WrestleMania 3 attendance figures were incorrect, but they were not exaggerated. There was approximately 1 million people at WrestleMania 3. Wrestlers don't blade. That is fucking ridiculous. The idea that a wrestler would cut themselves across the forehead to fucking bleed for the sake of a good fucking show is an absolute joke. What actually happens, and it goes down to really good camera work and really good trickery. When the wrestler is down and the other wrestler who's just hit them is, you know, up, and that's who everybody's looking at, what happens is the set to bleed wrestler takes out a moderately sized Dulux box of red paint, and they just paint their fucking face. X-Pac heat doesn't exist because everybody likes X-Pac and thinks he's really cool, even back in the day. And finally, Dave Meltzer's star ratings are actually out of 100 and he just hates wrestling.